Hi there, it's Greg from RPM Technik. Thank you very much for tuning in to another one of the RPM Technik Talk podcasts. A couple of weeks back we were at the infamous Nurburgring and spent 3 days there, 2 days with Destination Nurburgring and 1 day with Manthey. On the Wednesday I managed to grab a few moments with Lars Kern, who works for Porsche, as many of you will know, and here's what he had to say for himself.
Yeah, my name is Lars Kern. I'm 34 years old and I work as an engineer for Porsche AG in Weissach in the whole car development. And I did some funny stuff in the Nürburgring as well.
Well, thanks very much for your time today, Lars. I know you're a busy man with some of our clients today, but it's an interesting point you started with just then, because a lot of people know you for being a driver, but you're actually an engineer first and foremost.
Exactly, yeah, that's my main job. And as I mentioned, I mean, sometimes I get to drive wild stuff here at the Nürburgring, but the main job is looking into vehicle dynamics, like in the whole car development. So I'm not actually actively developing suspension or stuff like this, but I do drive it, and I'm allowed to say if I like it or not.
Yes. How did you start then on your sort of Porsche journey?
They employed me 10 years ago as a test engineer, and I took care of like press cars and prepped press cars and stuff like this. Just made sure the cars drive well, and more and more they found out that there's some talent hidden, and they put me into cars and into race cars, and it worked out pretty well, and this is how it grew. It was never meant to be like this, but it just happened like this.
And so when because obviously a lot of people know you for setting fast lap times and record times. Being an engineer first and foremost, do you find yourself looking at the mechanicals, or do you just step aside and just leave that to the engineers?
Especially in pro. I think it helps to have a general engineering and mechanical understanding, but I prefer to not to be too deep into the systems, because nowadays we have so many systems in the car. It's hard to also for us to identify which system does what. So I jump out and I'm like, okay, the car does this and that. So basically what a driver does, and I talk it through with the other engineers or the system engineers, and then we try to find a solution for the things I feel or for the things I would like to have better. And I think it does help, but it's not. My job is not typically like an engineer job would look like. Yeah.
So the cars that we all drive, are the final setups decided by you, or is it as a team? How do you get?
Yeah, I would never say I define or I decide about a setup. I think it's good, or it honors me that I'm asked for my opinion on the cars, but it doesn't. It doesn't say that I have to greenlight anything, or it's just I'm one of the guys who is allowed to say how he likes it or if he likes it. And especially when it comes down to lap record stuff, then obviously I'm involved a little bit deeper, but it's different in every project, and sometimes it's, I don't know, in the Panamera I'm more involved than in GT3, or it really depends on the project, on my and on my schedule as well. So
when you do those faster laps, and obviously things like we're sat at the moment, a GT3 RS, that's got a vast amount of adaptation to suit your driving taste, but with a Panamera or a Cayenne not so much. So how do you sort of fine tune it?
I mean, there it's more you fine tune your driving around the car you get, because as you mentioned, on a car like this you got plenty of setup options to play with. I mean, in a Cayenne or in a Panamera, if you're involved in the project pretty early, I mean, then you have setup options as well to choose from, but not at the final stages of the project, obviously. So, and for example, in the Cayenne Turbo GT, I was involved at a pretty early stage and throughout the whole project, and it's one of these cars where I'm like really proud, because the car drives so well. And I mean, I can understand every sports car fan not being a big SUV fan, but I think like just from the physics, what the car can do for how heavy it is, and it's pretty phenomenal.
Because it's a really interesting point, because a lot of the time when we take out one of our clients that's never been here before, the first thing they usually say when they get out of the car is, it feels so strong. And you know, from an engineering point of view, how are they creating that? Is everything over-engineered?
I wouldn't say it's over-engineered, but we have like internal checks or like stuff we have to fulfill here around the ring, and you're going to see Porsches testing around the ring every week of industry pool, where other manufacturers maybe come here once or twice a year. So we have our own place here, own workshop, big workshop, so every Porsche, no matter which one it is, sees the Nordschleife quite often in the whole development process, not only for setup but also for durability testing.
Because you sometimes see people getting a little bit fatigued with lap times and talking about the Nurburgring, and without being cheesy, you sometimes have to explain to people, but if a Cayenne turbo coupe can do it here, it'll be able to do it on the M25, and that's why it's not all about the time. It's about being able to withstand what you always put them through. Exactly,
and especially, I mean, we basically, for us, we benchmark all of our cars at the end of the development phase, and if there's a chance of having a record like a SUV record or 4-door sedan or whatever, then we start to activate like the marketing part of it. But other than that, we would always drive the lap time for our like own check if we fulfilled if the simulation was correct, and if we gain performance from the last generation to the next, and just to see where we are.
And I mean, it was going to be one of my later questions, but 7 minutes 38 in the Cayenne, that must have been frightening. I suppose you built up to it.
I was here like 2 weeks ago with some journalists on a track day as well, and I gave some taxi laps in a Cayenne, and I mean, there was McLarens, Lamborghinis, Porsches, whatever. There was nobody who overtook us. So the car, and also like in customer hands, the car is so drivable, and so we did 2 days of a track day without working on brakes or anything. So there was no alarm or warning. So it was pretty impressive, also for the journalists to jump into a SUV and do 2 full days of Nordschleife, drive around. Faster cars like GT3s or whatever. But the car really opens a lot of it unlocks a lot of the potential it has to anybody who drives it. And this is like key. Same with the cars like this, like a GT3 RS made by RPM or Manthey. The key is always to unlock as much potential as possible for a customer.
I mean, talking of GT3 RSs, have you had much time in the new one?
No. To be honest, I was not really involved in this project. I mean, we are a big company. We have a lot of cars in the meantime. So I do race on the side as well. I have a family with 2 kids, so I cannot do everything. And in the past, I did all the GT cars. We always had 2 drivers, and we always agreed that it would be better to only have one. So for the GT3 RS, the whole development process was basically driven by Jörg Bergmeister, who's a brand ambassador as well, and I think he did a tremendous job. The car is really, really nice. I drove it in a couple of occasions, but I will not be in the car for a record attempt or a fast lap attempt.
Who will be?
Jörg.
Jörg
will do the job.
And because with that car, obviously I've never driven one yet, but it looks to be on paper one of the biggest step changes potentially in performance for a long time. The driver's got a lot more adjustment, and you kind of sit here as I obviously work in a business where we fine tune these. That's now giving the client more opportunity to fine tune it. It's going to be interesting to see how that works.
I still think it leaves space for aftermarket fine tuning, because you can always fine tune, because our cars are developed for a pretty wide range of usability. So it's good on the street, it's good on the autobahn, it's good on the track. If you only track it, for sure there are options to make the car better on track. It's going to be worse on the street, but it can be better on the track. So I think there's still stuff to do if clients decide to only track the car. But I mean, you mentioned it. I think it's a pretty big step, but it's it has always been a big step, and it's always going forward. And I'm always impressed with the next generations of cars, because sometimes you think, okay, it cannot be better, and then they appear with something like the GT3 RS now, where you're like, okay, yeah, crazy.
Because I had a passenger lap with you earlier. Thank you. And the first time I ever went out with a professional driver in one of these, I couldn't get over the imagination that you engineers have of, oh yeah, we can go faster than this. You know, my humble brain's thinking, yeah, don't want to go quicker. It's like today, obviously this is a Gen 1 we're sat in, but obviously you have the Gen 2 and the 2 RS. How or where, I suppose, if you're racing, that's pushed your acceptability of how quick you can go through that corner, and it's pushing the road cars that direction too.
Yeah, I think that's pretty beneficial. I mean, this year I'm driving in prototypes. Also, this just extended my view on aerodynamics and grip and drivability again. But also there, I mean, at the end, it really comes down to, because we sell our cars to customers, not to professionals or racing drivers, so that's why drivability, and as I mentioned earlier, unlocking as much performance as possible for like a average customer, this is key, because I mean, nobody likes a car where he's afraid of. People have to jump in the car and be comfortable with what they have. And I mean, if the ratio between power and grip and aero, it's more towards grip and aero, it's always beneficial for drivability. Yes. And I think this is what we have now with the GT3 RS.
Because I get it so often where clients come in to buy a car or look at a car and they kind of say, well, 500, 520 horsepower, my RS6 has 200 horsepower more than that. And when they drive it, obviously the weight is a massive difference, but there's no way we can demonstrate that on a public road to show them why it does what it does with only 500 horsepower. So it's a big difference.
Now it's, for me, that's not as I said, the ratio in between all the aspects, it's what's key, and it's not always the faster the more fun, or the faster the better. It's also how it feels and how you can control and how much potential you can get out of your car. So I mean, it doesn't need to necessarily be 700, 800 horsepower.
No,
it's
Do you think that the 992 will be quicker than the 2 RS MR time that you set?
No way.
Won't be quicker.
No,
that's
for sure
conclusive.
Not. That's pretty. I'm 100% sure.
That's because of the power.
Yeah. Because I mean, even with the GT3 RS MR, we put it a lot of aero. I mean, static aero. I mean, it's not. You cannot work it. It's not active, but we have so much power in the car that it overcompensates for a lot. And even with that much power and that much aero, we could do a lot of straights and corners flat. Where now with GT3 RS, obviously you can do it flat as well, but it's just 20 k's less. So it just sums up overlap for sure. In the technical areas, the GT3 RS is going to be way faster, but on every straight, it's just GT2 RS just pulls away.
Bloody hell! Have you ever rewatched that lap and thought, could have done a bit better here and there?
I don't tend to do that. I saw some people like commenting on it. When I did my first record lap with the Panamera, there was some guy saying like, I could have done this better and this better, and this was basically the point where it just stopped thinking about it. Or I mean, I know, because we do data and after every run, so it's not that we show up here and drive one lap and go back home. So it's like a development over like days or weeks where we prep like such a record drive. So in a perfect world, I think a 6:36, 6:35 could have been possible, but you never have perfect conditions here. Nobody has, so I think it's a fair deal for the lap time we have. I think it's pretty decent.
And was there a point when you first drove the MR version compared to the street, to the production version standard car? Was there a point like out here where you thought, oh yeah, here's where she's different?
I mean, we always, in the development of the GT3 RS, we did the 647, clinched the record, took it away from Lamborghini back at the time, and but we said, okay, we feel that there's much more potential in this car. But back at the time, they didn't allow us to do anything. But as I was racing for Manthey back at the time, we sat down and we're like, fuck yeah, we would like to this and that, but they told us nope. It's the fastest car in the world on the Nurburgring, so we keep it where it is. Then Lamborghini went faster, and then they were like, yes, okay, now you can. And then we just ripped the GT3 RS apart and put it aero stuff, and it was pretty short notice. I think it was like within 2 weeks.
Wow.
We built the car. We put it. I mean, the first dampers we got, we just ripped them out of the GT3R and put them into the GT3 RS.
Impressive.
So it was pretty, it's pretty straightforward and pretty hands-on. It was just some mechanics, some engineers, and we were just hammering it.
Yeah.
And then we drove it, and the additional aero, it made such a big difference. And the suspension gave me so much more compliance on entry. As I'm a guy who always needs a lot of rear support trailing into the corners, just my driving style. There with the additional aero and the additional rear support and suspension, it's really beneficial for me. So it was straight from the first meters. I was like, okay, that's gonna work. But
do you ever, and I guess it's your job, but whenever they go, right, we're gonna try and set a lap time here, and as you leave the pits and the whole team and the engineers are all looking at you and you think, don't make a mistake. Did you not think
they know about I know about my responsibility, but they also know how difficult it is to, you're never going to get a perfect lap because it's 20.8 kilometers, and they are realistically enough to understand that it's not possible to have a perfect lap. And it's part of the job, and I love it. I love the pressure, but the best feeling is when it's done. It's not the feeling while you do it. It's after it's done.
Yeah, I think I read an interview with you once saying about the first time you 2 RS MR, you kept it flat through.
I only did it 3 times, and it was the 3 records.
Yeah,
I never did it in
pretty good hit ratio.
I never did it in a prep lap because I was like, no, it's no point because if you have enough with over 300,
What does it do under the bridge through there?
Yeah.
320
or.
Yeah. And if you were to, if a guy was saying, hey, why should I put an MR kit on my 3RS or 2RS? How would you describe the differences?
It's really, it unlocks so much potential of the car, which is normally hidden only for pretty professional drivers. The absolute performance of a GT3 RS MR or a GT3 RS, or just production car versus Manthey car, it's maybe 5 seconds, like in an average, or 6 seconds. But I think if in the hands of a customer, it's at least double. And this is where I see. A lot of people, they invest in whatever more engine power and stuff, but just invest in suspension and aero and drivability, because this is what it ultimately is. And then get somebody to coach you and to show you what the car is capable to do. And then it's everybody loves the GT2 or GT3 kits. And it's also here around the Nürburgring, there's no other car where customers are driving that fast. And for me, that's a clear sign of it's a pretty decent product.
Very good. And changing the topic very slightly, potentially with the next evolution of the 992, the Gen 2 vehicles, people are talking about potentially having a hybrid type system or a turbo system with them. What's your feelings about that?
To be honest, I don't have any feelings, or positive or negative, on that, because same with the Taycan, for example. When we first launched it, or when we developed it, I was having bad feelings because I thought it's heavy and it's not sporty, but then finally, they surprised me how good the car is, and from that point I decided to just trust them that the next generation going to be better. I don't know how and why, but it's going to be better.
And it's something that we find crops up with the next generation of Cayman and Boxster being electrified potentially, and I say to people, well, maybe that's true, and it might not appeal to maybe the old guard that have liked them, but do you know what will happen? That'll be the best version of an electric sports car that's ever been put on the road.
Exactly. And this is how I look at it. And ultimately, I mean, I'm employed by Porsche, and I don't want to be involved in all the homologation process and stuff. And if we need to produce more electric cars, it's for a reason. Maybe it's even a reason I don't understand. But if this is the direction we want to go, then I gonna try to be involved to make the best electric cars ever. So,
because as you say, it's always about moving forward, and there's no two ways about it. You know, if it has a turbo on it, it's going to ultimately give it probably a quicker lap time if that's how you want to measure.
Yeah, it's also like, for example, with electric cars. I mean, from a driver perspective, there's nothing better than initial response or torque and like an electric car has. So I was a little bit involved in the Mission R or Mission, I don't know how to exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. And I was so impressed. And if this is it was our first electric race car, and if this is just the start, that's incredible what we're going to see in the future.
Because in the video, that car sounded like ear-piercingly loud. Was it just that video?
No, it was like this. And also there, I mean, it had so much driver involvement that, because a lot of people are like, it's boring and no sound and no driver involvement. I was like, hey, I mean, I was fully involved. It's so fast. You can dial in the car exactly as you want. So it opens new opportunities, new chances, and we have to stay open-minded for new technology. So I'm always a fan of trying new things.
Yeah. So bearing that in mind, with looking at new technology, but would I be right in saying what Porsche will probably be working on is making these battery systems lighter so that it mimics more of the balance of a petrol engine car?
I mean, for sure, the whole industry is working on the same. They're trying to make it, I mean, more range and lighter. As I said, and if you look at the capability of the electric cars now, and it's the first or maybe second generation of electric cars we see in the world. If this is only the second generation, I think everybody should be able to imagine how good they're going to get if we keep on developing.
Just don't sound the same.
It's true, but I mean, we have to move forward, and nobody liked us putting turbos on the engines, and now everybody wants turbos on the engines because it's just making more power. And we talk emissions and homologation, and I think everybody has to play a part in this whole game and the whole environment friendly game. And I think if we can combine to have emotional sports cars and we reduce emissions and stuff, I think it doesn't hurt anybody.
No, definitely. Well, just before we finish, so obviously we're at the Nurburgring today. Well, not obviously, you can't see us, but but I said to you when we came back in, how many laps have you done here? And you sort of shrugged your shoulders. Thousands.
I have no idea. It's a random question, but I never started to count. But it's always when I show up at the Lindner Hotel, they tell me that I'm for sure the guy who spends the most nights at the Nurburgring within the last years. So I think it tells a lot. And this is also where it comes down to for all this stuff and all this record stuff. Because I mean we have a lot of good drivers, factory drivers at Porsche, but they spend like 200 days a year in race cars and maybe 10 days in a street car. And for me it's exactly the opposite way around. So I'm a specialist in street cars, they are specialists in race cars, and if you would put them into my position, like doing Nürburgring all year long, they would definitely outpace me. But that's their job, that's my job, so it's good.
I mean, exactly. And so obviously this place attracts lots of newcomers every year still. What would be your anybody listening who fancies coming, what would be your, it's probably too general, but what would be a good bit of advice to start off with? I would always advise to start on the simulator and on videos. So don't come here if you don't know every corner, what's like coming after what, because other than that it's just a waste of time and a waste of money, and it's dangerous on top. So only come here if you know the track visually, and then start with a slow car. Take an instructor, so you don't teach yourself any wrong stuff or wrong line. So take an instructor for the start, and then it's just
put laps in.
Yeah, time behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite portion section of the track?
I like everything after Hohe Acht because it's really technical. It's pretty. You have to keep a lot of momentum. It's nice. I mean, a lot of people are always like, they love the balls corners like Flugplatz and Schwedenkreuz. I'm not a big fan because I know if I have an off there, it's going to be big. Exactly. So I prefer the slower, like mid-speed corners where it's still technically interesting, but it's where it's not that dangerous.
Yeah, and so I've got one last question, which is the 919 Evo time that Timo set around to? Yeah. Would you ever fancy a crack at that?
No.
That's interesting.
No. I feel like I mean, you get dizzy watching the video, so I don't want to see myself in one of these cars. It's just too fast. I mean, even if you jump in a GT3R compared to a street car, everything happens pretty rapid.
You have to recalibrate.
Exactly. Yeah. And I cannot really imagine how it's going to be in such a car like the 919. So no.
Did you watch that lap like all normal people like us?
I was there.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I was there. As soon as I knew that they're going to do it, I was like, okay, I have to see that live because it's never going to happen again. So I went to Pflanzgarten 2 and watched how he came down and how he went around Pflanzgarten 2, and it was just like, I mean, it was like, how?
Yeah, it's a wild lap when you watch it. It looks like it's on fast forward the whole
time.
Yeah,
No.
But well, listen, I've taken up plenty of your time, so I really appreciate you coming out to have a chat, and we're going to have a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.